How's it going, everybody? Gaurav Bhatt and Mir Vasavra here. Welcome to Indian Express Live. Very excited to be joined here by a guest who needs no introduction, Sania Mirza. Sania, is this the longest you've been at home since your playing career started?
No, because I was pregnant, so I was at home a long time at that point. But it feels like that. But I think this is the longest I've not taken out clothes from a suitcase, and I've taken out from my cupboard. I think this is for the first time in my life.
Right. How was it? Because you were there, the Fed Cup team was supposed to play in China, and then the tie was postponed to Dubai. How was this entire coronavirus situation with you guys? Because I think you guys were also one step ahead at each situation.
Yeah, we literally I personally was missing the virus so to say by 2 days in every country that I was traveling. So like my travel history was obviously we were in Australia, and then after Australia we came to India, and then from India we were supposed to go to China, and when we went, obviously that got cancelled and the Fed Cup got moved to Dubai. Luckily, I have a place in Dubai, so for me it was it was not so much of staying sort of at a hotel, and like I had a baby also, so I have all those other issues also to deal with. It's not just the plague and the virus. So yeah, and then like I was telling you just off camera, like everything was happening as we were like playing. So we played the Dubai Open, then we went to Doha, and that's when I think it sort of started like really taking its course, and like it started really going a certain way. And then when we were playing the Fed Cup, like one day we would play with ball boys, the next day suddenly we would have no ball boys, all ball kids, because of the virus. Like it was just not hygienic for like. And then the kids were, when we had a couple of ball kids, they were not allowed to give us a towel, for example. They were not allowed to do certain things. And then suddenly we had like no linesmen, because it somehow like we had only one linesman. So it was like, we were like experiencing it as we were going. And we played against Indonesia, and I played my match. I finished around 12 o'clock on the Saturday night of that week. And on Sunday morning, my flight was at 7, I think, 7 or 8. There was a flight direct to LA. So I actually took that flight back after not sleeping, and I left my son and I told my mom to bring him back to India. Like I think that was the best move that I made at that point, because the minute I reached, an hour later after my 24-hour journey, an hour later the Indian Wells got cancelled. So I mean, I was like killing myself thinking I should have at least like taken a Monday morning flight. I would have not had to take that flight at that point, But yeah, so it was like it was kind of like overwhelming at that point as well. But I came back just in time before the lockdown sort of started over here.
Sounds crazy, the whole journey, no? I mean, how's everything been since? Like at home,
it was a bit like, I think it was there's so much unknown and so much uncertainty, and I think that's what's kind of making all of us so sort of I think like anxious. I sometimes like, I think I don't really have an anxiety problem. Like I'm not a very anxious person, but like a couple of nights ago I was actually having anxiety out of nothing. Like just I was like lying in bed and I was thinking of things, because there's so much like uncertainty up in the air, and like having a toddler in the house, like you don't know what's happening and how to protect yourself, how to protect the child, how to I have parents who are older, so there are a lot of things that are so sort of uncertain. And so you're not really thinking about like work or tennis, or that's so like beyond everybody's thoughts at the moment. Like at the moment that the thought is to try and be healthy, keep your immunity up. Having a toddler in the house, like you don't know what's happening, how to protect yourself, how to protect the child.
So like if you look at how things are panning out for you
so
at home with your family, how do you like focus on things like, where does sport feature right now? Because what you're talking right now is essentially about survival. Does sport really take a back seat?
It's literally become that basic, right? Like we've all have to gotten our survival instincts out. I mean, it's become as basic as, should we have Nimbu Pani every day so that our vitamin C is enough? Like it's become so basic. Like every day I sit, like I've never done that actually. I used to have a lot of vitamin C. I've lived a healthy life in general, but I didn't put so much thought into it that I should have ginger water with this much turmeric and this much this, so that but it's a thing that we are all constantly thinking about. Like every day in my house, it's so instead of chai, we are serving this, because like that's what like is the need of the hour. So personally for me, I mean, I've been healthy, I've been safe, so obviously, that's the most important thing, and I've been very lucky. Even though I traveled, but when I did come back from America, since my son was here, I was in isolation for 2 weeks, which was really hard because we were in the same house and I needed to be in isolation, me and my dad both. And but we were both fine. It's just we were just taking a precaution just in case, And it's been over 2 months now, and we've all been fine. We're all kind of we're quarantine. I mean, I think I've only been out like maybe twice, which was like to get some milk or something. Like, I mean, it's as basic as that. And so thankfully in Hyderabad, I have a tennis court at home. So I'm not practicing because I need another person to practice with. But like I have, like, at least I can, we can go out and like sort of like we still have a lot of fresh air and we have enough space to kind of move around and stuff. So just been working out, trying to keep immunity up. I mean, trying to stay positive. I think we just have to sort of mentally understand that these things are not in our control, and we just have to sort of go by that,
Yeah.
Sunny, in a sport like tennis, which it's globe trotting, right? You're catching one shuttle after another. How is this entire thing going to affect, from travel plans to even logistics for a player?
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. I mean, I think I've been saying it already in like for months now, that as soon as this happened, I feel tennis is going to be one of the last sports that's probably going to come back, because it's such a global sport. And somebody was arguing with me saying, yeah, but it's an individual sport. I said, yeah, but like who's going to travel and actually make it to the tournament? Like the second you travel, you're compromised, right? Like the second you sit on a plane, you're compromised. And it's impossible to have a tournament where you're going to have 500 tennis players come from like maybe, I don't know, 100 different countries, and nobody is going to have the virus. I mean, the chances are small. Somebody is going to catch it at some point, and it's just too big a risk. And it's, tennis is going to, I really do feel for the players that go on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis financially, because there are a lot of people that we don't really think about. There's so much talk about daily wage workers and everything, and people are doing so much for that underprivileged, but I feel there's like a borderline where the ones that go week to week and go month to month, I mean, what about them? Those are people that were comfortable, but they are suddenly not comfortable anymore. Like suddenly they have no means of earning, and that includes tennis players and athletes, who are ranked outside of say the 200 250 mark, where they are not really making that much excess money, where they can, I mean, they do have savings, but I don't think they have that much access. So yeah, it's going to be difficult, I think.
Yeah. Now you mentioned a lot of points over here. First, I'll just go from and mention about daily wages and the struggle and the problems they are facing. Like it's heart wrenching when we see all those things. How do you see as a nation how we have reacted to this pandemic, and especially for that section which is not, I mean, so to say, privileged, like perhaps you and I are?
Well, I personally have reacted by trying to help. I think that fortunately that you are. A lot of us are in privileged positions where we are able to help. It could mean 500 rupees, and that feeds an entire family for a week. And I personally have done some work with the NGO, and we actually fed, I don't know the exact number, but it went into lakhs, and we raised over 3 crore rupees over a period of 3 weeks. With an NGO and with a movement called Youth Feed India. That movement was on for 2.5 months, and as there was just individual people who have raised this money. It was not really any big companies involved. So we raised over 3 crore. It was like 3.3 crores if I'm not wrong. And so personally, that's how I have dealt with it. But the problem is that no matter what you do, it's never enough in a situation like this. I mean, sure, we have fed, but I mean, our population is so large that it's very difficult to say that, okay, is this enough? No. It's almost like you're feeling guilty to be in a privileged position today when you see videos like that, right? Like where you have you're able to sit in your house, you're able to have food to eat, you're safe in an environment, and then you see this mother carrying a child on her shoulder and then dragging a suitcase, and then another child on the suitcase. I was seeing this image this morning actually when I woke up, and I mean, it's heart wrenching. Like it's really like it breaks your heart that you're not able to help more. And so, I mean, we do whatever we can. To be very honest, that's how I have personally done it. I mean, that's just one of the NGOs that we've helped. We've also done just personal stuff. We do a lot of zakat. It's the month of Ramadan as well, so we do a lot of zakat, which is giving charity. And so we started giving of the charity. Normally we give it in Ramadan, but we started it before itself because it was the need of the hour. So we've been doing that. Personally, I have an office space. So personally, I've kept about 200 to 300 packs of food just in the house, because we keep getting people outside. Every day there'll be someone who comes outside, and so we just obviously with social distancing, we just get them the food, and that lasts them for a week for a family of 4. So these are just some things that we've done. And honestly, like I said, even 500 rupees goes a long way. It's really no donation or no charity is small. And, in times like this, we all have to come together.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, we've all, for you, for me, for Gaurav as well, sport has been our life. I mean, for you, it's playing. For us, it's watching you guys play and write about it. It's how we earn our bread, but it does put into perspective, right? I mean, do you think sport really matters in times like these, or
so I think
have you got time to reflect?
Yeah, so I think that, like I said, on a larger picture, probably not. But I think that on a day-to-day basis, I think that how much easier would be to deal with this pandemic if we had live sport on TV. Like, think about that. So I think that I think that sport. I stand by what I've always said. I think sport is a great educator. It's a great leveler, and I think sport really does teach you so many amazing life skills that I think a lot of times the education is not able to teach you, but sport teaches you that, and teaches you how to be humble. It teaches you gratitude. It teaches you how to deal with victory, with losses. It teaches you so much. I mean, I can go on and on. And that doesn't mean that you have to be number one in the world to learn all that. You can just play any sport at any level and you'll learn that. That's why it's so important to be in schools. But I do think that we are going to come out of this stronger. And I do think that once this whole ordeal is over, I do think that life is going to somewhat get back to normal. I don't know how normal or how soon that's going to be. And that's when we are going to realize that sport is important again. And it's probably not as important as living or dying, but it's important enough for a life skill. And I think for life, it's important to have sport. So right now, if you ask me, am I thinking about tennis? No. Will I think about it once the pandemic is over? Sure, because I think it's a very important part of my life.
Sania, do you think the impact of a year's loss, it's going to be, in putting it in perspective, it's going to be devastating for everybody. But in sports, especially in tennis, you're losing out a year of your prime. Especially you've had this comeback and you had this great Fed Cup run, and I'm sure you must have been excited to be in the playoffs, playing for the national team. How difficult would it be for a tennis player to lose out on a year?
I think it's very, very tough on every athlete. I mean, at least as tennis players, you're right. I mean, there are some people that prime, but in tennis, you don't only prime for 1 year. I mean, you can prime a couple of years. I mean, imagine we've had this discussion in our house, obviously coming from a sports background, and imagine we talk about this all the time. And, imagine the runners who are supposed to be peaking this year, who are going to play Olympics. I mean, those are people, a lot of athletes just try to peak for that one Olympics. I mean, they're very rare that they play back-to-back Olympics. And for tennis, at least, we've got Grand Slams, we have other tournaments, we have so many things to look forward to. But there are so many other sports where, they only have 1 or 2 things in the year. And when you lose such an important year, it's a huge, huge miss. And I do think that, a lot of things change because of this. It's you have to find motivation again. You have to find that spirit to work hard again, to fight again. Who knows who is going to come out of this pandemic, what their mental state is going to be, what their physical state is going to be. You don't know anything. It's so, like I said in my first answer, it's so uncertain that we really don't know. So I do think that it is, even for myself, I mean, I'm going to be a year older, and for me, one of my main goals to come back was to come back in the Olympic year this year. And, it was going on the right track, but it's not to be. And a year and a half is a long time. You don't know. I mean, I'm not 23 where I'm like, it's okay, it's one more year. I mean, I'm 33, I'm 34 at the end of the year. So yeah, it is something that definitely is going to be a deterrent for some people.
Now you mentioned the sports family bit. Now it's a very intriguing situation for you at home, right? Where you and Shoaib are both at high performance level at international sport. It involves a lot of travel and very very different sports as well. You are in an individual sport.
Yeah.
He's in a team sport. Have you guys discussed how do you deal with the situation going forward? Have you had the time?
I mean, he got stuck in Pakistan at that point. I got stuck here, and first of all, that was very difficult to deal with because we have a small child, and we don't know when Izhan is going to be able to see his father again. I mean, that is also, it's as basic as that, So we have spoken about it, but I think that we are both pretty, in general, we're positive people, but we're also pretty practical, So we did discuss it, and we said, what, this is not something that we can control. So there's no point in being upset about it or being a certain way about it. We just have to sort of, hope that we are healthy and we come out of this on the right side of it. Really, I mean, that's literally what we were talking about. And, he has a mother who's over 65. So he also needs to be with her because she's by herself over there. So in the end, I think it worked out best that he was over there with her, because in the middle of PSL is when their lockdown started.
Yeah.
That's how he got stuck over there. And then I got stuck, like I mentioned how. So we haven't really beaten ourselves up about it, but we have discussed it, and we just kind of left it to faith really and said, what, let's hope we come out on the right side of it.
How do you deal with it? Like families in two different countries not being able to meet?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I won't say, I'll tell you, but then which marriage is not? I don't know if you guys are married, so.
No, but it's philosophical nevertheless.
I think that, a lot of people always ask us that, it's so nice. You guys it must be so easy because you guys are sports people and, it's so easy. Like, it must be great to be married to another sports person. Sure, in some things it is amazing and it's really good. There are many times that you don't need to explain certain things that are going on mentally and emotionally. But we both are and have played at the highest level of our respective sports for a long time. We both are in very high pressure jobs which demand a lot of emotional and physical energy out of both of us. So out of that, and then to come back and put the same kind of energy into your personal life, it is also something that takes a toll on you. It's not something that is as easy as people think. So like every marriage and every relationship has its own sort of I think challenges, and our challenge is that we have to deal with being apart a lot, but also have to deal with the fact that we are both in very high pressure jobs, so to say. So
Sania, you mentioned tennis tournaments and 500 players converging together. Say, for example, Shoaib, if he tours England and he's going out with the Pakistan team, what is the sort of worrying factor for you, and how comfortable are you with him resuming?
See, I think that I will definitely be worried because, like I said, the minute you travel, you're compromised. But I think when you're traveling in a team, it's a bit more controlled. I think they can control it a lot more. They can test them before they leave, for example. Yeah. They can all be tested. They can sit on the plane. They can take a private jet. I mean, who knows? They're playing. They are playing in it is extraordinary scenario. So you have to obviously take those extraordinary steps. So maybe they'll travel in a private. Maybe they'll go there. They'll only mingle with each other, and I'm sure the other team will do the same thing. It's a lot more controlled. In tennis, it's very difficult to do that. How are you going to do it? Because it's not just the tennis player. We all come with a team of 4 people. Like, you also have to test those people. Like, nobody is going to go to a tournament 2 weeks before. Like, it's impossible to do that. And there are so many things that I think, but I think when it comes to him traveling, and suppose he does go, I mean, I'll still be worried that he's traveling, and that also because he's going to UK, which is highly hit right now. It's a hot spot. I mean, that's the other thing, right? Like, it's not just about getting it from each other, like in the team or against each other, but also just in general. I think England has been hit really badly. So that will also be a worry. I don't know. Are they going? I mean, nobody seems to know.
That's
Like,
the
were they discussing it?
that's the rules. I was listening one of those BBC radio shows today that they're supposed to travel as of now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not called off, and we don't know yet,
But
but it's
then,
not called off.
yeah,
So
I mean,
West,
having said that though, like they have to do, everybody has to wait, because everything is changing day to day. So you can't really take a decision of what's going
yeah,
to happen in 3 months, right? Like US Open is still not called off. So, I mean,
they were planning to shift it to Indian Wells, by the way.
I know, but still, it's in the US. Like it's still pretty badly
Yeah.
hit, and we still have to travel and get there. I mean, I have to make a 24-hour journey. So, I mean, I'm saying like if I have to play that, so I'm saying that who knows? Everything's changing day to day. I mean, I hope that we can all travel, and I hope that we can get back to normal by then again.
But for you, it's different, right? I mean, we say tennis is an individual sport, but you play doubles. How does double start even, right? TT, for example, they were saying that they might not have doubles or mixed doubles. Still, a vaccine is found. I don't know how tennis is looking at it.
They haven't said anything yet. I mean, I think because because our tour is suspended till the 13th of July. I think that we already have a couple of months in advance to sort of plan. I know that we heard that we were not going to hear any other changes until I think end of this month. So I think we'll know more in a couple of weeks maybe. Yeah.
Right. I mean, about tennis and we spoke at the international level. This has a lot of impact at the youth level as well, right? I mean, right now training is opening everywhere in the world just for elite athletes. How do you think this entire pandemic will impact the grassroots? You run an academy yourself. What kind of precautions do you think you'll have to take to convince parents to send their kids to play?
No, if you personally ask me, I don't think that life is going to get back to normal very soon. Like even when everything opens up, I don't think that everything's going to get back to, oh, okay, it's opened up, so let's go back. I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think it should happen either, because the virus is not really going anywhere. I mean, the virus is there. It's not that it's disappeared out of the air because the lockdown is open, right? So that's not how it works. And I think that, running an academy, our academy has been shut since obviously, since a couple of days before the lockdown, actually. We had already shut it because we just didn't want to take a risk, and then the lockdown happened. So it's been a couple of months, and we actually, we also have a lot of staff who we've been supporting throughout the pandemic, because, it's only fair to do that. And they are also not from Hyderabad, so it's very small issues. It's not just about, oh, are the kids going to come back and start playing and the academy is going to run? It's not like that. There's so many more issues that go with it. They want to go back to their homes. They're not from Hyderabad. A lot of them, they can't travel. Who's going to take care of them? Where will they live? I mean, there are those issues. Once the academy does open, we don't know if people do leave, who is going to come back. Like, how do we know if they are going to be able to come back? How are we going to run it without X number of coaches, for example? I mean, it's a 12-sport academy, so it's not a small academy. And then on top of that, to have who's going to send their kids. At least tennis is not really a touch sport, so to say, right? Like, it's not a sport where you need to actually have physical contact with someone. So it's still more doable, I say, than like other sports, like where it's boxing or stuff like that, where you're actually in very close contact with each other. But I still think it's going to take a few months for it to come back. And the precautions that we'll take is, I mean, we'll do whatever we can, but I'm not going to personally open up my academy until I'm sure that there are no kids at risk, because that's the last thing you want. I don't think that opening up an academy just for the sake of it and, having kids come and risk their, health because of that, I just don't think it's worth it.
Sanya, you've been at home and I have this great copy lying around in my house. Have you been working on a draft? Will there be a second part to this great story?
I mean, there can be. There's a lot that's happened in the last few years, I guess. I think I released that in 2015, was it? Like, I think it was 15. And it's been 5 years. It's
5 years, huh?
Yeah. I mean, like when I look back now, like there's so much that's happened. I've had a baby. I won another Grand Slam after that, which was in 2016. I came back after I had a baby. And then I won another tournament after that. And then I played the Fed Cup. And for the first time in our lives as a country, we qualified for the World Group Playoff, which has never happened. I've been playing Fed Cup since 2003. So there's so much that has happened. So yeah, I do think there can be a sequel, but no, I have not been writing a draft yet.
You know what can be what can be a nice chapter or another book for all you know. It's how you deal with the trolls as well, by the way.
Yeah. No, you can't do that because you can't give that much importance to a troll. You can't you can't acknowledge them that much and write a book about them. Come on now.
That's true. Yeah, that I give up. I lay my argument over there. But
I mean, I don't know if you guys saw. I was having a chat with Sunil Chetri the other day on an Instagram live, and we did speak about the trolls a little bit because it's so funny that how that we all not just as athletes, just as public figures, that we have to deal with these trolls for no reason. I mean, we're sitting at home and there are people are giving galis to us for no reason, and we're like, what have I done? Like, I've just been sitting at home for the last 2.5 months. So we were having a laugh about it, and he said that how sometimes he really feels like replying and how he stops himself because he's like, I really, it takes so much out of me to stop myself. And I said, like, I was feeling that everybody's in the same position. Like, it's crazy that how, but they are my source of entertainment. They are really entertaining during the pandemic.
After the point, is it entertaining after a point? Or, I mean,
I actually don't read so much. I don't really read so many comments, to be very honest. I don't like go into mentions and stuff and specifically see, oh my God, like, who was saying bad things about me or good things about me. I have the feature on my phone where basically if somebody that is either verified or that somebody is that I follow, if they send me a message, then I get a notification. Right. So that's the only time I actually go into mentions. I mean, unless I'm really bored and I have really nothing to do, which I don't in these days a lot of the time. So sometimes I do go into those, and I do find them funny for the most part of it. Me and Sunil, we were actually talking about the fact that how it's okay that when they comment about our game and they comment about how we played and stuff like that. It's when they get personal is when the problem starts. It's when you talk about your family and they talk about your kids or they talk about your parents and your siblings, and that's when you're like, oh my God, that's that's a different kind of loser. Like, you really have to be really, really like different kind of. It's a next level of being a loser, right? Like to hate someone that you don't know at all and to hate their family. Like, in what sense does that even make? So yeah, poor things. They're
Tanya, like you touched upon a very crucial point over there when they get personal when you say, but do you worry about your kid in the sense that when he grows up and if he plays sport, for example, do you worry about all these things? Given
no, I worry about it right now. Not so much when he plays a sport. I mean, I already worry about it. I mean, I think with social media, everything has become so sort of out there, right? Like, as well, and I think that there's a sense of the maternal instinct of mine worries about it a little bit, I'll be honest. But the practical side of me knows that there's no other choice. What choice do I have? I cannot cover him, for the rest of his life. I can't cover his face and take him anywhere that I go. It's not going to happen. So initially what had happened was I tried not to show his face for like about 3-4 months after he was born. And, I just thought, whatever, nazar and all this bad, all these older people tell you. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to keep him away. Then I realized it's a lot harder to live like that. I'll be very honest. It was becoming so difficult with the paparazzi cameras everywhere, with social media everywhere, with, I started traveling. I mean, every time I can't be hiding his face. It's uncomfortable for him. It's uncomfortable for me. Like, it was just becoming too overly dramatic. That's when I said, you know what's the big deal? Like he anyway had, believe it or not, he's 18 months old and he already had like fan pages and like he had these people who'd made his pages and stuff. And so I just, I know. And I was just like, I'll start his own Instagram account so that I can control what I'm posting. At least that way I can put out to the world what I want them to see about my child and myself or our family, for example, which was the reason. So we kind of took it more head on, if that makes any sense, because I think it's very difficult and it's unfair for me to say that me and Shoaib are going to say, okay, my child is going to have a private life. I mean, it's not going to happen. It's in today's time and age, it's not going to happen. We are just going to fool ourselves if we think it's going to happen. So we have to try to give him as much normalcy as possible. Now he's at a stage where he understands camera, he understands smile, he understands. He's very used to people taking pictures of him. He goes out and he poses for the camera. If you put a camera in front of him, he knows he needs to, so he's at that stage now. And I, as a parent, have to do what's normal for him. I mean, and try to be as normal as possible. Now, everybody's normal is different, I guess. So,
Sania, you mentioned the Olympics being a great motivator for your comeback this time around, but you also, in the past, you've said how it's also about, sending out an inspiration for all the working women and all the women who are there, and they also reach out to you and they seek counsel from you. How has that that entire experience been like since you've had the successful comeback?
Yeah, I think that I had a few reasons to make that comeback, and definitely, I mean, I think one of them was also I feel that we are in positions where we're able to make impacts on people's lives, and I feel that I put on 23 kilos when I was pregnant, and I had every single person, including people that I knew, not just on social media, including people that I knew, some of my closest friends who told me that I'm probably never going to lose the weight. Forget playing tennis, I would probably never lose weight. So I told them that you guys don't really know me, and I was still 20 kilos overweight. And I said, if that's what you think, then you don't know me at all. 4 months later, I lost 26 kilos, which was my first step into becoming, coming back to where I was or where I left off. And the amount of messages, Gaurav, I got on Instagram and on Twitter from women, especially. I mean, also from men, but also from women. Whenever I put out a workout video and stuff, saying that I have been overweight for the last 4 years. I had a child. I never could move. And after seeing your video, I went for a walk. Or after seeing your video, I went to the gym. And after following your video, and that just struck a chord with me that, something as small as losing weight, which is really in a bigger scenario of life, is very irrelevant. It's just about me being healthy. That was for me, which is most important. They found so much inspiration with it. And I felt, if I have this ability of making an impact on someone's life for the better, even if that's one person, then why not? And I think in this part of the world, we have this cultural sort of, mindset, or so to say, a lot of them, that, once you become a mother, you have to sort of like sacrifice your entire life and your entire dream, and you just have to become a mother. But it's not like that. You can be a mother as much as you can be a father and work, and the same way you can be a mother and you can work, and you can still be a good parent. It doesn't make you a bad person because you're going out, to practice for 3 hours a day. It's not going to make you a bad parent. And I felt that women in this part of the world needed stories like that. They already had that in Mary Kom and stuff, but I think the more stories they have, the better it is for them to really, I believe that they don't have to sacrifice their entire life. Their life is not over. It's the beginning of a new life. When you give birth and you become a mother, you don't have to kill yourself because, oh my God, my life is over now. You can still follow your dreams.
Yep. Sania, let's just to wrap up. I think we're just out of time. But one last question: what's the thing you're looking forward to most when you can walk out of the room and the confinement ends? The first thing that you'll do.
No, I think that I'm really looking forward to being back as a family again, and just being in the same place. Really, it's not been easy. Staying away from my husband, and for Izhan to stay away from his father. I mean, no amount of virtual video calls or Zoom calls can do justice to actually being in person. So I look forward to that, but I also look forward to a very normal world again, where hugging and shaking hands becomes normal again, where we don't have to think about the fact that we might die because we've hugged someone we love, or you have killed them because you hugged them. I look forward to having love and that hug. And and I'm not even a hugger, and I'm saying this, so I can't imagine people who actually are how they're feeling.
We just discussed that topic on our last podcast, but I don't think you could have summed it up any better. Thank you so much, Sania, for joining us and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you.